Now that all is created, it is you. Before the world was created, it was you. Now that all is created, it is you. It is you in this age, it will be you in the age to come. Lord our God in the earth, it is you. In the highest heights of heaven, it is true. You are the first, you are the last, there is no other God but you. So bring back all the exiles from the corners of the earth, then all will know that you are God alone. Showing loving kindness, gather all of those who hope in you.
Hello, fear-free liver lovers. Your fear-free livers a little bit more every single day, and your lovers as your livers, because it's the loving that winds up defeating the fear. So much of our fear is based in the memories that are hidden when we were devoid of love, devoid of protection, and all those things. And so it's the love that's actually topping us up, filling us up to the overflow, to the risk point, right? So today, I want to talk to you a little bit about, I don't know, something about inversion therapy. But it was interesting because I grabbed that tune that you just heard, which is Atahu, which is in Hebrew means it is you. It's you. It was you, it is you, it will be you. And the lyrics to that comes out of the Hebrew prayer book, the Siddur, the Jewish prayer book. And I absolutely love them. I showed you pictures. See, there's my actual Siddur there that I have underlined with my favorite words. It was you when the world had not been created, and it's you when it was created, and it's you in this age, it'll be you to come. Sanctify your name for the sake of those who sanctify your name, and with your salvation, you, O Lord, sanctify us. It is you, O Lord, in the heavens, and it's you, O Lord, in the earth. You are the first, you are the last. All of our hope is in you. It's in you. It is you in this age. It is you in the age to come. And as I wrote this song, it just was, so yeah. So it was a such a feeling of the awareness of his person, his personality. You, wow, it's you. Then you, now you to come, everything bound up in him. And it just became a love song for me. And as I was pulling that in, I was thinking about some of the things that happened for me yesterday after I talked to you. How many of you found that little personal chat about withdrawal in fearful situations helpful to you? I hope so, because it was just kind of a personal little processing that I was doing, trying to stay present so that I can create and I can bring forth things. And and welcome to those of you on Cloud Hub. I don't know how, I hope soon they have this thing worked out so that we have chat and we have it goes live stream to your page. That would be so cool and people can see it. In any event, we are broadcasting now on Cloud Hub. DLive didn't connect today. Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, and Facebook. And I just don't know how to get all your chat. The only chat I really can see is the chat in the Periscope app here. My other aggregated chat has never seemed to work, so I don't know. In any event, so it was interesting what happened for me yesterday, and it has a lot to do with these shapes here, because do you guys remember that this canvas you can see is black, was at one point pretty much white on the background, and it was full of color like this. It was all full of color and fiery, colorful flame things. And I felt like the Spirit put it in me just to paint it black, to go into the black of what we've experienced, the look it right in the eyes, look that, oh my gosh, what if I wind up in a FEMA camp moment, you know? What if I'm facing this death type moment? Let's just go right in there and let God work his secret work in us in that absolute black place that's devoid of what we've depended on so often to make us feel safe. And there's changes when when just culturally the weight and the heaviness of even leaving your house, is like, it's a thing, right? And so God had me painted all black, and then I noticed swirls in the blackness, like energy moving, and I talked about the creativity in the dark and what God does in the dark as opposed to the enemy's version of darkness. And I thought, well, probably what I'll do, I'll probably turn it into a flame. We'll have a nifty little candle I can paint in the middle of the black thing, and we'll go, wow, light in the darkness and all that stuff. But you know what? Instead, in this shape, in this negative space on the canvas between some swirls and the black, this shape emerged. It was sort of flame-like, and then I realized it was more like a feather. And then I began to realize the feather voice and the feather drops of God in the darkness. that becomes super powerful for us and super, super important for the fear-free liver lovers, because we need to let the feathers of God's voice penetrate us when there's so much fizzing and fritzing and anxiousness and, media and interpretation and, many boisterous voices wanting to control the whole scene. And so then I painted a feather, and I began to embrace God's feather-like assurances to me in this dark place when everything in our nation seemed to go death, almost like tomb-like still. After so much activity and so much prayer, so much investment, so much standing, so much prophesying, and it just sort of began after the third and after January 20th to sort of grind to a halt, to a tomb-like feeling. And so like, what if the feather of the Lord speaking to us is visiting us in that tomb space? And what could that be like? Then the feather turned into a quill pen. And so I'm thinking, what is he writing in this space? And then it's been a couple of weeks. I haven't touched the canvas. And I started to write the words, and what came to me is, no ear has heard, no eye has seen, no heart has perceived that which the Lord has prepared for those who love him. And I began to go and I began to write those words hovering in the air around the quill pen. But I got to tell you, and I wrote them in white, and I thought, well, maybe they could be gold, And, we like that image of God writing his word on our heart and speaking to us in the dark. And I thought I could maybe make it a whirlwind thing. But as I looked at the canvas, it just seemed so forlorn to me, because and I realized it yesterday, what is more powerful to me visually than almost anything? And it is color. And so I have realized that I need to transform this color thing. Sorry, I just got a text. And let me just there you go. So then I realized that this is one of the most powerful things that I painted before, because this is the Siddur, this is the Jewish prayer book here, and I actually wrote out in Hebrew the Moedim prayer, which was at use in the Second Temple. Jesus and his disciples would have prayed the Moedim. We give thanks to you, O Lord, our God, and the God of our fathers forever and ever. It's you, the rock of our lives, the shield of our salvation in every generation. We have placed our hopes in you. Very important prayer in the Second Temple period. And Jesus himself would have prayed the Moedim. And so the word, see this energy coming off of the page. So I began to embrace this energy as I began to embrace coming out of my shell after the fear and the intimidation that I internalize a little bit more than I would like to. And so this is what I've been working on. So I covered it up. It's not, I'm just creating the shapes now. So you can see that now there's this shape, and it's very imperfect. I had to take white paint and stick it on a black canvas. And that was intense, because you can see that it's really bold against there. And this is my feather, and there's a lot of blue in it, which I think is kind of cool. And now, but I have to tell you, something opened up in me. I could feel just being able to move, to shape, to roll with it like in water, like in a wave. And it began to open me up even to do this. Now, this is important because you want to be in touch with what can help you break out of the shell that you hide in under intimidating circumstances. What things, what shapes, what colors, what smells, what actions, maybe it's jogging or running or baking or cooking or hugging or reading, but something that is going to help you move out of your anemone state and your seed coat state and into your I'm going to bring out of the rivers of living water from the deepest place. And so we're working on this, and now I can see space for colors and shapes. And instead of, writing the words, which was kind of cool, I feel like the shapes and the colors and the movement can speak more deeply than if I wrote a specific Bible verse and we all jumped to our left brain and went, oh, I know that verse. I know what that is. And so I'm excited about this. And something I heard today that I want to share with you that goes into our theme of inversion therapy. And I'm going to check back with, we got a lot going on in our state today, so people are kind of checking with me for info. But I wanted to, kind of encapsulate for you something I listened to today. It was about the dark side. I mean, the real dark side, not the creative quiet of the womb or the center of a seed, what's hidden inside the seed coat. But I mean the deep, dark, a forever loser side of the thing. The only way those guys can do anything is to do this thing called inversion. The people who are enslaved to the worship of the eternal loser, the forever loser, they're really, really addicted to numerology and numbers and divine math, but everything they do, they mock and turn upside down. They invert everything. So if there's a good, they're going to invert it to bad. If there's a beautiful prophetic thing in the scripture, they're going to twist it and turn it upside down. They're going to, if up is down and down is up, they're going to invert that. And they're going to invert symbolism. They're going to invert sexuality. They're going to invert finances. They're going to invert every meaning. Everything precious will be what they trod under with their feet. And this is how they get power. They invert and turn upside down. But my friends, you realize that idea of inversion for the kingdom came from God first. You see in scripture this, oh really, what the enemy meant for evil, I'm inverting it for good. So even that idea of inversion is not original. The enemy has nothing original he can do. Nothing original. And it's all about taking somebody else's toys, creations, children, planet, and turning it upside down and twisting it. There's no creativity in that whatsoever. God, you see, has the like, even in Joseph, even in Mary, even in Genesis, and it talks about after Eve and Adam fall, he says, well, guess what? Your seed is going to crush the serpent's head. Yeah, he'll bruise his heel, but he's going to crush his head. So you see the inversion already of darkness. Even at the time of the fall, God is already switching and saying, yeah, but out of that, I'm going to bring this. I'm inverting the situation. And so that's a very powerful thing. So I notice that when I go into a situation that is inherently discomfortable for me, if I can say, I'm going to be the one in the situation that inverts, that turns upside down, right side up again, that resets things toward heaven, that tramples on the serpents and the scorpions. So, for example, today I was doing groceries, without a mask, and I know the store, so they generally don't bother me. But it's always a bit of a crapshoot. But I began to walk through the aisles and sing quietly to myself, "The joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord is my strength. He gives me now the power to raise the dead. He gives me now the power to raise the dead, etc. I release joy wherever I do go. And I begin to make up words and walk through the aisles, quietly singing and inverting the atmosphere and inverting my brain waves and inverting my thoughts back to rightness. It's like when a sunflower goes like this because there ain't no sun, and then comes the light. That head of that sunflower inverts back, reverses, changes course, right? So we become the people. So it's really interesting because the enemy loves to mock and twist, but we are the ones who have all the power and authority to reorient, reshift, fix it, make it right, turn it this way. So they're obsessed with inverting everything God has made. And they're angry and mad because they can't create anything new. There's nothing new or truly generative or valuable. And there's no love. There's no life. There's no choice. Did you know that? There's no choice in the enemy's kingdom because he's a liar. There's no free will in the enemy's kingdom. And this is one of the things I find so fascinating is, you're told, oh, you can't cast out that demon because what if the person wants it? What if they did this thing and they made agreement with it? I'm like, well, that's not a good thing, and that affects your thinking more than anything. But the bottom line is, there is no truth in the enemy, so he always lies. He's always lying. So there's no agreement that can ever be made with him that is not based on fraud. So we have authority as kingdom agents, heaven's law enforcement agents, kingdom enforcement agents, to nullify and to cast out and command things to go wherever we are, because there's no righteous legal covenant that's been made. It's like if somebody calls up your grandma and she gives them the credit card and they clean out her bank account or whatever because she thinks that she's talking to a real person, and she agrees, yeah, oh my gosh, I better give you my card or my account number, because she believes, so she agrees to this thing and she gets cleaned out. Does law enforcement say to her, well, I'm sorry, lady, you're screwed, you agreed to it, so there's nothing we can do? No, they say, no, you were a victim of fraud, you were lied to, you were deceived, we're going after that person, we're going to get your money back, right? This is where we are in Christ. So everything the enemy does, he has no sincere people who love him for who he is. He has no sincere servants of heart and laying down their lives out of reality and out of truth and out of free choice. He doesn't. It's a slavery system of deception and inbreeding and generational ensnarement, one generation to another, of a system that involves no free choice, no free will. Okay, we have the other thing, and out of that, so I was listening to this thing, amount of time and energy occultists put into gaining power. It's obsessive, and they will do obsessive things, and they do all kind of stuff that is very intricate, very intense, maybe takes years to learn this practice or that practice or the other thing. And so sometimes people say, well, why don't Christians do that? I'm like, let me tell you the difference. First of all, the people that do pursue God pursue him out of love and sincere relationship. But I'm going to guess that the simplest and most innocent and most authentic love and obedience to the Father has way more power and weight than 20 years in a dark room learning how to conjure something up. Because what we have is authentic intimacy. That moment, like if you have a moment with somebody, maybe a friend, you have one or two moments that just are gleaming moments, and that person says to you, I just want you to know what you mean to me, or I just want to thank you for what you did. I just want to, one or two of those things can change a life and live in you for eternity. One prayer is eternal. It never stops. It never ceases. So when we pray, we're doing something that goes on and on and on and on and echoes in the universe forever, based on his kingdom, right? His glory, his righteousness. So the power of our sincere choice and our sincere acceptance of the beauty of our turning things right side up, of inverting situations right side up. So, like I was talking about earlier this week, there's nothing that can happen to you or to me today that together, with Jesus and I and us, don't wind up overcoming and turning into our glory story. There's nothing that can happen to you today or me today that we don't overcome in the name and authority of Jesus. Because we've determined to. The story isn't over until the Messiah sings. You never quit when you're losing. You celebrate when you're on the I've got this back now. So I can finish that story. I can dot that period. I can move. I can turn the page because it's finished. It's repositioned back into righteousness. So there's nothing that the enemy even hasn't mocked or turned over or inverted that we don't have power and authority every day to turn back this way. So this is why I tell you to do something that scares you, because you go into that situation that the enemy has inverted in your life, taken something precious to you, something meaningful to you, and it's hurt you and it's scared you and it's intimidated you and you've lived out of that and you've avoided it. So now you go back in and go, what I say, plant a flag of victory on a grave of defeat. And you go back in and say, yeah, well, that meant this to me before, but now that same thing means that I'm going to go in and turn it right side up. I'm going to go in and get the gold out of this. This is what my friend Tanya told me when I did the Rising Project cantata presentation in Boston. I invited some critics because I thought it was a good piece of music. I thought it, and I wanted to take the risk because I knew the work was good, but I was presenting a recording of it with art and lighting and not the live thing. Well, this one guy got all upset because it wasn't live, even though it said on the thing, you're going to hear the recording of this deal. He was mad about that, and he was mad because of my faith. And so he took to the Boston pages of world of music criticism, and he called me out and criticized me and picked on me and was very unkind and didn't speak to the value of the work, only to my faith expressed through it. And somebody sent it to me and said, you should probably know, because this is getting around different circles. And I have a dear friend, Rabbi Rich, who stuck up for me, and he went right in there and he said, you know what? So bad. It's too bad you couldn't see this and this and this and this and this and this, because the guy wound up walking out after 3 songs or something. Tell me that isn't the Holy Spirit moving on him. And so I took a look at the review, and I immediately saw some things that I knew were negative. And this is what fight or flight will do. You fog up, and you don't see very clearly, and you begin to focus on something else. So my peripheral vision changed. I immediately turned my eye away and closed the page because I knew that the power of the words there would stick with me, and I didn't want to let them in. And I didn't want to deal with them at all, but I did something that really scared me. I said, I called a couple of friends of mine and I said, look, you were at the event. You know what I did. You know what I meant. You know its strengths and its weaknesses. Would you please read the comments that this person wrote and tell me if there's anything in there I need to know? Because if I do it, I have a tendency to obsess. And this is where you can do something that scares you in a way that also is wiser than you might have done before. Because at a younger age, I might have said, oh, if I really had faith, I'd be in there reading that myself, and I'd be in there, reading every word and dissecting it, if I really had faith. Well, a few years down the road, I think, I have faith, but I'm also, this is my first rodeo. So instead of me doing that where the cost is high, what if I do something that scares me by asking my friends to read it and get back to me? And I did not want to hear from them. I was hoping against hope they would say, oh, Julie, there's nothing in here for you. Well, the scary thing was they both met with me and said, well, here's a couple takeaways you can have. And I was like, dang it, I really don't want this. It was hard. But one of my friend Tanya said that criticism is like a bag of stuff coming out of a mine, and that you rinse through it, and there's gravel, there's rocks, and there's gravel, and there's dust. But when you've sifted through it, a lot of times there might be a few little kernels of gold. And if you can hang in there, you're going to get a couple little golden kernels. And so I let her pick them out for me. And she said, here's what I heard. He wasn't, really super affirming, but he said these things about your voice and your work. If you really hear them, they're actually complimentary. And then she said, and here's these other things that I think you can learn from. And you know what? I don't even remember what they were. They were hard to hear at the moment. And my other friend said, I really think you made a mistake by just making people sit in a room and listen to music. Because I think it was really hard for people. It was hard for me because there wasn't visual. See, what I did is I had canvases, paintings, and I had narration. I got up and narrated, and then they would hear a piece, and we had some interspersed dance about every 4 pieces, and there were lighting changes. So, but people still sat through about a 45-minute presentation, hearing music together in a room without in a good 2/3 of it was just with the lighting changing and not with this visual stimulation. And so she said, that was really kind of, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but that probably wasn't very successful. That was hard to hear because to me, I'm thinking, can't you people see the possibility of actually having a shared listening experience? Can't you imagine we're sharing music and listening, and we're being still, and I'm narrating between the pieces, and you have a chance to think and let it soak in. Well, I think that's true, but I'm also a pioneer, and I'm way out ahead. And people back who can't handle that, well, they have reactions, don't they? My point is that this thing was super negative, but my friends helped me turn it right side up and helped me walk through what was scary to me because, believe me, my heart was on my sleeve. I had worked for 3-4 years with the top musicians in the world. If you buy the Rising Project, you'll see it is a little masterpiece. It's a little jazz cantata of worship based on the Jewish prayer book. There's nothing like it in the world. It is a little gem. And I know that, but not everyone can see it or appreciate it. And so I got attacked, and they helped me invert that. But my final piece of the inversion was to write to the guy who had been what I think is just so unkind and frankly hurtful in his comments. And I wrote to him, and I turned that this way. I planted a flag of victory on a grave of defeat, and I said something like, your comments were interesting. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry you didn't hear the whole thing. I don't think you realized that what I was doing was something no one has ever done before, because I can't afford to have an orchestra. And but I think you would have found, had you heard the whole thing, that there was something I was aiming at. Would you like a copy of the music? I'd be happy to send it to you. Kind of like no hard feelings thing had been so unkind. I don't remember what I said. All I know is that I inverted it, I took it back, and I became the generous person who gave him value add after he had hurt me. In front of everybody. I'm sure those reviews are still out there. And plus God showed me the people that were willing to stand with me in that kind of, ugly public thing. So this is what we do every day. We get up every day and we invert, we reorient to the kingdom light what has been hurtful to us. And the beautiful thing is, when I take the time to do that and you take the time to do that, you will find that those situations really kind of get closed, case closed, details dealt with, things finished. Sometimes it's a letter you have to write to someone. Sometimes it's a phone call. Sometimes it's a inner healing session. Sometimes it's an activity you do in the spirit to finish something legally related to what you did, what you need to separate from, what you need forgiveness from. But we have this ability to revert back to right orientation what has been hurtful to us. And that's why I called this inversion therapy. The enemy's always doing this, and we're going, no, not so fast. I'm turning it back this way. And for me, guys, every little one of those, every time somebody comes at me and I'll turn it around with a love thing or a clarification or a truth or a confrontation that comes in a different spirit, I might feel the discomfort for a few whiles, but then it really gets settled. It really gets finished and closed. And that's how we heal, because so much of anxiety is unhealed, undealt with things that just cycle through us. So you want to have that sort of last word feeling. Not the last word of you having to be right in pride, but that last word of like, I'm going to finish this with a good ending. I'm going to. I don't know where you're going to wind up, but I'm finishing it with a really positive ending and a really positive interpretation. And we get to do that. So for me, when I start out my day, I have things to invert every day, because you hear so much. I have a narrative. It's negative. There's scary stuff. And so I have to one by one go, no, not really. No, not really. This is how we're going to do that. This is what we're shifting, and we're putting things right in right orientation. Kind of like coming back to the canvas here and finding a new way to overcome what was kind of a stalemate for me creatively. So I guess that's what I have for you. Go do something that scares you. Put right back, and when you do that thing, remember, you can do it with support. You can find people to help you get the gold out of your situation, who can walk with you and counsel you through that. And you can get back what was stolen from you by having that last word. In other words, the last thing you do in relationship to the situation sets it on its right orientation to the truth of God and to what you need to say, whether it's releasing into forgiveness or setting a boundary or speaking a blessing or cutting off this, opening that, getting some help, seeing the situation clearly. And even though, and everything worth doing is the uncomfortable thing, honestly. I hate to tell you that. It's true. Anyway, guys, go do something that scares you. Turn upside